Historically, women have always been considered inferior to men. This was especially true in the way society viewed them before World War II. Women were regarded strictly as housewives and were in charge of domestic duties while husbands provided for the family. When women did work, they were considered to be job stealers, especially in the 1930s during the Great Depression when jobs were scarce. However, when America entered World War II in 1941, their role in society started to change. World War II gave women the opportunity to work in factories, help in the military, and impact the nation while at home. Ultimately, this played a significant part in changing their roles from housewives to contributors of society. It brought opportunity for immense changes in women's roles straight to their home, allowing them to get involved without diving headfirst into the war effort. Women took part in whatever they could. Unlike normal jobs or army duty, at-home service was a necessity. When there was a food shortage at the war front, American women quickly took ownership of this duty. Going further than just complying with this new rationing plan, they planted their own food so that they could go with even less of the needed supplies. These victory gardens were created by Charles Lathrop Pack in England, but the American women took it up as their own. Although present in World War I, these women brought them to a new level. By the end of World War II, 40% of American vegetables came from these homegrown gardens, made possible by 20 million families. This increased production was important because many of the Japanese Americans were locked away in internment camps, and they had previously produced a large portion of the nation's crops. A huge push towards this green movement came from the National War Garden Campaign, supported in the White House by the one and only Eleanor Roosevelt, who had a victory garden herself. Gardens are like a job of their own if used to supplement vegetables for an entire family. This new responsibility at home gave the women the power and the means to help in a case that was very dear to many of them. Citizen morale was also boosted by wartime rationing, which allotted a certain amount of ration cards to each individual within a family. This was critical in saving food to be sent to the beloved soldiers overseas. Another need for service on the home front was financial support. To help in this cause, women started selling war bonds. These bonds helped the people feel active in the war effort and indirectly helped the men who were on active duty. Also, the women hosted troops when needed. This helped not only the men they hosted, but the women who did the hosting because they felt like it was their husband, brother, or father who was benefiting. While everything women accomplished for World War II on the home front benefited the troops, it also helped them to feel active in the cause that the men were fighting for. This new indirect aid was turned to direct aid when the women made the shift to the workforce.
All the day long where the rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the riveter, keeps a sharp lookout for sabotage, sitting up there on the fuselage. That little friend can do more than a man can do. Rosie.
During World War II, women flooded back into the factories. Some women had already worked outside the home, but the amount of women that now had that opportunity and took it made an impact, and they were able to help morph the image of women from then on. The majority of work opened up in manufacturing supplies for the war. These women were hit with propaganda such as Rosie the Riveter, a cultural icon who was doing tireless work to help the war effort. Propaganda like Rosie the Riveter was put together by the War Manpower Commission, who had the job of recruiting women to help fill the jobs that had been lost to the men fighting in the war. In this propaganda, they portrayed Rosie as a glamorous yet hardworking woman, setting an example for women to strive for. This use of propaganda was very effective, and as a result, men's jobs in factories were taken over by women until the war was over. Another common field of occupation for women during the war was in the medical field. The Red Cross recruited over 200,000 women volunteers and employees and worked closely with the troops overseas during World War II. These women helped boost the morale of soldiers as they cared for them and helped them feel comfortable when they were injured. Whether a riveter or a Red Cross nurse, women going to the workforce had an impact on the war and also showed the men what they were capable of doing. These newfound capabilities were displayed in extreme proportions by the women participating in the armed forces.
Hey, there goes one of those petticoat soldiers now.
Yeah. My sister wants to join the WWII. What do you think of that?
She's crazy. What the devil's the woman want to be a soldier for?
Just a waste of time. This is a man's war. What sort of jobs can they do?
During World War II, women played out one of their numerous new roles in society when they left their aprons at home and stepped into uniform. Over 350,000 women served in these new uniforms in various women's war groups. One of the most prominent of these groups was the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, or WWII. The WWII, formed in 1942, was an organization with over 150,000 women, including women serving in the Army. In 1943, it was given full credits and converted into the WAC, meaning that they would receive the same pay and discipline as men. This was the first women's branch of the United States Army under the direction of Oveta Culp-Hobby, who was a prominent society woman in Texas. Even though women never participated in actual combat, General Douglas MacArthur still called them his best soldiers, claiming that they worked harder, complained less, and were better disciplined than the men. All generals wanted more women in the troops, but the men complained, saying that they would be looked down upon because of their masculinity and also feared that they would take all the easy jobs. Another organization, alike the WAC, was the Women's Air Force Service Pilots, or WASP, that consisted of 1,074 female pilots out of the 25,000 who applied. The revolutionary group flew over 60 million miles in every type of aircraft, eventually receiving the Congressional Gold Medal in 2009. Women not only stepped up and worked with the Army, but with the Navy as well. The WAVES, or Women Accepted for Voluntary Emergency Service, was created before the WAC. Thanks to the effort of Eleanor Roosevelt, the WAVES were recognized right after the WAC. By the end of World War II, 27,000 strong women were even beginning to be sent overseas on the ships. All of these organizations laid the foundation for the women that are serving today. However, women didn't have to change their normal occupations to be considered a major part in the war. Over 70% of the women that served in the Army performed typical everyday American jobs. These included typists, clerks, mail sorters, and many other normal jobs. While contributing to the war effort, women taking these jobs also freed the men to fight in combat. Not only did women's new positions help the war effort, but they also prepared women to take new steps in the future as significant people in society. By war's end in 1945, women had taken new roles and responsibilities in society as factory workers and on forces both on the home and war fronts. It is these changed roles in society that allowed women to take responsibility and action to contribute to society more than they ever had before. This uncovered their potential to function as prominent figures in society. Today, women have accomplished numerous feats. They have been to the moon, on the Supreme Court, and even ran for president. No one knows what comes next for this promising generation of women.
Rosie, the river, Rosie, Rosie, Rosie.